Hey there friends! Today we are looking at some miniatures that I think are a great alternative for Space Marine Scouts and only a fraction of the price, the Wargames Atlantic Spacenam. With a little creativity and kit bashing, I think you can make an awesome proxy scout squad for only about $10, 1/4 the price of the official miniatures. My name is Cellrock. Let's see what we can come up with today on Cellrock Games. Space Marine Scouts are really cool. They are also really expensive, which is kind of a shame because these Astartes in training are an essential part of any Space Marine chapter. So what alternatives does a commander have? Well, there's the old firstborn Space Marine Scouts, although compared to the new ones, they might not necessarily hold up. When they first came out, I actually quite liked the old Space Marine Scouts. I thought they were really cool. But nowadays, with the Primaris scale, they look more just like really muscular little human dudes. Not really guys on their way to becoming a full-blown Space Marine. And even compared to other human-sized models, and even models from the time, they didn't exactly look like they were on the path to being a super soldier. If you or a friend has a 3D printer, they could possibly maybe print some scouts, but that's not an option for everyone. But what is? Alternative miniatures. These are the Spacenam from Wargames Atlantic in a collaboration with Reptilian Overlords. And when I first had the thought of using them as alternative scouts, the artwork on the box really reinforced it for me. It reminded me of other art I'd seen about Space Marine Scouts. From what I gather, Reptilian Overlords is a gigantic, hyper-intelligent crocodilian being and/or miniature designer who makes sets often for 3D printing, but then collaborated with Wargames Atlantic to bring this one into hard plastic. At first glance, people might associate the Spacenam with the old Kitbashin jungle fighters from Games Workshop. I believe the first plastic Imperial Guard set, now known as the Astra Militarum, that you could ever find. For a set of almost 30-year-old miniatures, it is still being sold for $37 for 10 of them. However, the Spacenam, you get 20 for $40. Compared to the 10 miniatures you get in the $80 Scout Squad team, the Spacenam are a quarter of that price, and half the price of the old Kitbashins, for some miniatures that you could reasonably say look a lot better. I got some of the first injections, and so some of the first ones that were made, so there were a little bits of flash, but I'm really happy with them. I think they look awesome. The Spacenam come with separate weapons, lots of options for special weapons, sniper rifles, close combat weapons, lots of different heads, and then separate torsos and legs for posability. There's also lots of bits of little gear for accessorizing and making them look extra cool and special. I bought the Spacenam in 2022 when they came out, and I built this guy to be a little commando. But when I first held him side by side with one of my firstborn scouts early this year, I thought, which of these guys looks more like he's on his way to becoming a super soldier? So, inspired by my little scout there, I made a test piece for this concept based on him with the same sort of shotgun. And I think it works well. It fits a middle ground between the two. The old Space Marine Scouts came on 25mm bases, but the new ones come on 28mm. It's a very small difference, and if 25 is what you have, I wouldn't worry about it. But a friend of mine got a 3D printer recently and printed me out some. And thanks to this super glue and this bag of white powder, I'm going to use that to use the bases my friend gave me for the 28mm ones. So I clipped out the legs, and when clipping out the torsos, I decided I wanted to use these armored bodies. I didn't want to use the bare-chested one, as that felt a little too Rambo-y, Arnold Schwarzenegger, commando-y for the look I'm going for my Space Marine Scout proxies. Each torso comes as a front half and a back half, and they glue together very easily. The legs have a ball joint on them, and then the torsos have a socket, and this lets you get a lot of rotation. When it came to gluing the legs to the bases, I like to file the feet of my minis just a little bit to give them just a little more teeth, to grip the surface. And then with a little dab of the super glue and some baking soda to act as a strengthener and hardener, it worked very well. For the one running up and sort of jumping, I don't really like minis that have just one foot on the base. I like to have both feet kind of connected for more stability. So I used some little bits of cardstock to make rocks. And since that looked pretty good, I decided to decorate the rest of their bases too. When it comes to attaching the torso to the legs, you have a lot of variation in how you can pose your mini. And the arms are awesome in that they're labeled, so these ones R4 and L4. That means they go together with right arm 4 and left arm 4. The first scout, I decided let's give him a sniper rifle. And thanks to this Tamiya extra thin plastic cement, it's really easy to make it all line up well. And you can see just by rotating his body and rotating the head, depending on what arms you give them, you can get a very big amount of variation. An important part of kitbashing and converting your miniatures is the sense of movement that they give, and that's a huge part of it. And with the next guy having a running forward look, I gave him a pistol and sword. Space Marine scout squads are known for having a variety of different weapons, and I wanted one to have a missile launcher. The box itself comes with a grenade launcher, which would work just fine to represent it as a proxy, but I wanted to try and see a kitbash with the Stargrave troopers, see how well their arms work on the Spacenam. And honestly, once I get the shoulder pads on, I think it'll look really good, just like he sort of got cold, so we put on his cardigan. For the next running guy, we gave him a pistol and a close combat weapon also, but I didn't like how the original arm was sticking out so much, so I clipped off the hand and attached it to a different arm. That way it looks like he's just running forward with his knife and pistol. For the pistol arm, it also stuck out in kind of a strange way, and I don't have footage of the conversion I did with it, but it's the exact same as the technique I used for my Making Better Orc Boys video, where you slice off a small wedge of the arm and then use that wedge to help reposition it. That way you're still using the same amount of material, you're just changing its angle. It's a little rough right now, but once we get the shoulder pads and heads on, I think it'll all come together. The Spacenam heads themselves are fine, but they have that Predator Commando look to them, although they don't actually just straight up have an Arnold Schwarzenegger or Kurt Russell head, so good for them. Nonetheless, I wanted to use different heads for this Kitbash, because it always kind of confuses me how so many people just don't wear their helmets in Warhammer. And so using two other fantastic Wargames Atlantic sets, we're going to give our scouts some helmets. Mostly with this sort of mask and rebreather head for the regular troops, and then the Raumjäger kind of almost skull mask head. I thought that would look good on the sergeant and help differentiate him a little bit. And just like with how you pose the torso, how you pose the head can give a lot of movement to your kitbashed miniatures. Finally, we're going to add some little details to these guys, starting with, for most of them, shoulder pads. I used a strip of cardstock, 1/2 centimeter wide and 1 centimeter long, and then, after curving it around my fingers to give it a shape, I glued it in place onto their shoulders. This isn't my first time using cardstock to make shoulder pads, and they look, honestly, I think pretty good. We'll use some little bags and pouches and grenades and other stuff too to add a little more detail to these guys. They want to look like they're ready for anything, especially for operations without support. For the sniper, I want him to look super sneaky, so we're going to make a cloak for him. Using some paper towel, we'll cut out a little rectangle, we'll put glue on it, fold it up and press it all together, put glue on the other side. And once it's dried, I folded it in half, cut it along an angle, and then cut out a little piece for the neck. It's almost like a right triangle. Thankfully, I had my left-handed pinking shears as well to help cut the bottom of the cloak and then sort of fray it up to make it look like it's not quite in pristine condition. The point of it, in the lore of the miniature at least, is that it would help to break up his shape and help him hide more. After that, it was just a matter of fitting it to him and with a little bit more glue, attaching it around his shoulders and wherever it touched him on the back. After you put glue on a paper towel, you sort of saturate it, it becomes stiffer but also sort of malleable, almost like something you can kind of sculpt, and want to try using it to give tabards and other cool stuff to other Space Marines. From there, it was just a matter of painting some glue on their bases and dipping them in sand to finish off the basing. I was honestly kind of surprised how well I thought the sand went with the little cardstock rocks and stones. That was my first time doing this, and I'm definitely going to do it again. The last step in making these guys was to give them good primer coat. I used just a black spray paint from the hardware store and then a white dry brush. And for a $10 Space Marine Scout Squad, I think pretty good. I'm honestly very happy with how these guys turned out, and that I was able to get this video made to share it with you. Because they're not perfect, no, but for a $2 miniature as opposed to an $8 miniature, I think they could work really, really well. And if you're playing games with friends and fun people and basically anywhere other than at an actual Warhammer store, I don't see any reason why they couldn't be your Space Marine Scouts too. They're a great intermediate size, I think, between the old Scouts and the new ones. And when compared to the old Scouts, I think they definitely represent guys who are on their way to becoming genetically engineered super soldiers. And that's not even mentioning the other things you can do with these guys besides Warhammer. You can certainly use them to make your own special forces kind of Imperial Guard guys. But more than that, you can use them in any game. Games like Stargrave, where they could be some elite commando bounty hunters or pirates coming to wreak havoc upon your poor crews. Or they could be your crew seeking to do the same to others. But as with everything, it's up to your imagination, the stories you want to tell with the games that you want to play. I'd love to hear what you think about the Spacenam miniatures, my friends. And before we go, I want to give a huge thank you to the supporters on my Patreon page. It really means a lot to me. Thank you. And thank you, my friends, for watching. Take care until next time.